clock stopped. And they say that in the first moment of that silence, Master Hanush's heart broke, and he fell down dead on the floor next to his beautiful machine. And most people of Prague still believe that to this day, Master Hanush's spirit still resides inside that clock, keeps it turning and functioning smoothly year after year, decade after decade. These crosses represent probably one of the single most important events in all of the history of Bohemia. Just outside of Prague at the Battle of the White Mountain, where more than 7,000 men were slaughtered in a little over 2 hours. Now, after that incredibly bloody battle was finished, the Austrian authorities arrested the 27 ringleaders of that rebellion. And about 6 months later, on the 21st of June, 1621, those 27 men were brought here to the square, and one by one, they were marched up onto an execution scaffold that stood on this exact spot where the crosses are, and then they were put to death. The Austrian authorities took 12 of those severed heads and they put them inside of iron baskets. They took them over to the Charles Bridge and they hung those baskets containing the heads from the roof of the bridge tower to serve as a warning to anybody else who might have the super intelligent idea of rebelling against the empire. The legend is this: the 27 executed nobles return to the old town square every year. Now what they say is that the nobles come back here, if they look up at the clock and they see that it's broken down or it's malfunctioning in any way, then they know that there is a problem in Bohemia, a big problem.
A fascinating report, and joining us now is Jeff Fritz, who led us on that tour, and Hannah McGee, a paranormal expert. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for joining us. Hannah, it's obviously a hugely historical city. What is it you share? What secrets do you share with the people you take on the ghost tours you do?
Well, definitely there are a lot of legends connected to the city. Few of them, few stories you have seen actually on this show. We have about 5 tours, so we cover a lot of different areas. We cover Old Town area, we cover Bridge area, we cover Castle area, and basically all the ghosts that are connected to that particular spot, particular area, we share with people. We tell about it to our people.
And it's such a fascinating city historically, Jeff, because it's been at the heart of European civilization, well, for thousands of years, but certainly for the medieval era and the modern era. And you mentioned the 27 noblemen. How important was that as a turning point in the history of the Czech Republic and this area?
It was a turning point. That was the effective beginning of the 30 Years' War, a period of time that pretty much laid waste to all of Europe, caused untold strife and suffering that had never been seen prior to that time and has been seen very rarely since.
It's amazing this is a kind of cauldron for that kind of activity, because of course the Nazis marched into Czechoslovakia in 1939. They then went into Poland, which started the Second World War, but they were here then again. It seems that Czech Republic is at the heart of so much death and destruction.
Yeah, that was once said by a very famous German chancellor, that he who controls Bohemia controls Europe. So, strategically speaking, for many centuries, this has been a place that armies have passed through, and a place that's been very important for different people to control for all kinds of reasons.
Now, Hannah, we're here for 4 nights investigating, the team are. Are there any spirits or ghosts or legends of ghosts they should be particularly afraid of? Who are some of the nastier characters who might pop up?
Well, afraid of, I would say a lot of characters are not nasty, they are more or less victims of our history. A lot of them are actually here in these areas, in these underground tunnels. They will be the 27 noblemen who spent their last night before the execution. It could have been the executioner who was definitely here with them. Could have been Jan Želivský, who is probably 2 centuries before, who was tortured here in one of the chambers. I don't think people should be afraid of them, but they could be felt. Their energies are present here.
I think there's a lot to be felt here. Thank you both very much for sharing your expertise with us. Well, we've heard about those 27 noblemen executed. We're now going to learn a bit more about the man responsible for those deaths on that blood-drenched day back in June 1621.
M.H.L was an educated man who hoped to become a doctor. In his teens, he fell in love with a young local girl, Dorothy. In 1582, he moved to Prague, where he hoped to study medicine. In his absence, she fell pregnant and married another man. Shortly afterwards, both her husband and her child died in mysterious circumstances, and Dorothy was arrested for murder. M.H.L was distraught upon hearing his beloved had been imprisoned, and convinced of her innocence, vowed to set her free. It is said that M.H.L took the job as executioner here in Prague for one reason and one reason only, and that was to get his Dorothy out of captivity. Unfortunately, the attempt failed, and finding himself completely disowned by his family and abandoning all hope of a career in medicine, he kept his title role as executioner. The mask he wore concealed not only his face, but also his shame. To make matters worse, M.H.L went on to learn that Dorothy was indeed a cold-blooded murderer. His life was troubled further on the 21st of June 1621, a day when M.H.L would shape European history by executing 27 noblemen on the town hall steps, including his friend Dr. Janeski. On this day, M.H.L wore a blood-red hood as a symbol of his regret. It is hard to think of a more sorrowful individual than Jan M.H.L, and it seems fitting that his troubled soul is still wandering across this city. He has been spotted at the Green Frog, once supposedly his home, and at the U Machinesa restaurant, one of his favourite eateries. But perhaps his soul is most closely attached to the old town hall, where his place in history will never be forgotten.
Carl Beattie with that report about Jan M.H.L, and Carl is with me now. I mean, a very gruesome episode that, wasn't it?
It's an amazing piece of history, and the fact that a lot of people don't realise that they blunted 4 swords when they were cutting off these people's heads, and they ran out of blades. So after the 24th victim, they had to hang the last 3. It's a tremendous piece of history, and still alive here because obviously people talk about it, and it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to think 27 people on one day were executed in that one spot, and you can stand there. It's just bizarre.
Now, before we just come back to tonight, just a quick thought on the 4 nights, because this is a first. We are travelling en masse, the whole team, to 4 different locations. A real challenge, isn't it?
It's the biggest challenge we've ever undertaken on Most Haunted, to take up everything you see here. You know, we are usually, as you know, we're in the studios in one particular area.
And
but
Paul and I stay in the same place, and off you go.
And
you know?
very comfortably you do. But we have to pick up everything. That's all the trucks that are outside, everything, all security, everything catering has to move to another location every single night. It's not been tried before, so it's something to watch.
And in a foreign country as well, so that's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
Let's just come back to tonight then. We'll go through the locations, but tonight, Old Town Hall, did you have any doubt in your mind this was the place to be?
No, as soon as we saw it and we heard some of the stories, I mean, the fact that people, not far from where we're sitting now, we had these executions that we've been talking about, but the activity here that people constantly talk about is just immense. The paranormal activity here is great. We had to come here, and the fact that the Czech Republic have been superb with us, everyone here have been great. They facilitated us everything we wanted to do, and without them we couldn't be here, so it's a huge thank you to them.
Many thanks to them. Matt, by the way, we saw him earlier in the show, is still down there in that cellar. Shall we have a quick look and see how he's doing? And he's certainly experiencing things down there, and as you said earlier, because he's a relatively new member of the team, it makes it all the more special, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that at home you can start to see the real fear, because it is dark. I mean, something seems to have happened then, but it is dark down there, and it's very scary, and what we're trying to do is prove the existence of what other people have seen. And you can see he's scared. He is actually fearful down there, and we're hopefully going to join him fairly soon.
Well, I looked down there last night with all the lights on, and I didn't like it, just so you know. So, and on that note, shall I let you go?
Absolutely, please, yeah.
I think it's time we went off and prepared for tonight's investigation. Carl, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
More on the way with the team, and on Virgin 1 at 9, by the way, as well. Paul, back to you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Carl. Well, it's a massive endeavour, and the journey has begun. We are with you absolutely live until midnight, and live until midnight from 8 over the next 3 nights. This is Most Haunted live from Prague. After the break, Julian and myself will find out even more about the sinister and blood-drenched executions and tortures of medieval times. See the other side of this.
An execution day was a public holiday. The actual term gala comes from gallows day. You know, seeing someone put to death was, you know, it was entertaining.
Welcome back to Most Haunted Live. We are absolutely live, and we're in Prague here in the heart of Europe with you until midnight tonight, and from 8 until midnight for the next 3 nights after. And this is a remarkable